sprint, another step, another day, another breath.
All right, so before I get started, I just have to say that I couldn't be happier with my walkout music. I was wondering what it was going to be, and I think that worked out really well, so that's a good start. It's great to be here and have a chance to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing at DraftKings. I've been with the company for about 18 months, and one of the things that I realized actually as I've been there is that I think we're one of those brands that is well known but not known well. People are always wondering what exactly, or a lot of people are wondering what exactly is DraftKings. So for those of you in the room who are wondering that question, we are a sports entertainment brand, most well known for our daily fantasy sports product. And I'm going to talk a bit today about the work that we did last year for football season, which is our biggest acquisition period of the year. So hopefully this image is familiar to a lot of people. This is actually dating back to 2015. This was really the first year for the company that we made massive investment in media spend to acquire new users. So hopefully you saw this is an image from an ad that ran a lot during that year that celebrated a real player winning $1 million on our platform and drove millions of new users to our product. This was a very successful acquisition campaign for us in 2015, carried into 2016 as we were on our way to becoming the leader in the daily fantasy sports space. And so as we were making our way into 2017, we were taking sort of stock on what we had accomplished so far and really thinking about, what's the opportunity in front of us. And so while we were the leader in the daily fantasy sports space, which is a group of nearly 3 million active users, the larger fantasy universe is almost 60 million people. So while we had a lot of success in those first couple of years, there was still a massive opportunity in front of us. And a lot of those people in the nearly 60 million are what we call season-long fantasy players. I'm sure there's many of you out there right now who know what I'm talking about. This is where you are drafting your team with all your buddies before the season starts and letting the season play out with the team that you have. So our question was, how do we make sure that we get more of these 60 million people to think about DraftKings as a viable fantasy product? And so we did our research and that really uncovered that there were two key things that were holding a lot of these people back. The first was really around relevance. For these season-long players, they were looking for DraftKings to be more than just a place to win a lot of money, but wanting to see whether or not we were a brand that really shared their passion for fantasy sports. And the other barrier we saw out there was really around education. People not understanding what is the difference between the daily fantasy product on DraftKings and the season-long product that they were familiar with. So that was really the goal. How do we put together a campaign for 2017 that would start to overcome some of those issues? So the core idea that drove the campaign we developed was really around driving this connected passion between fantasy that we as a brand have and that we know that fantasy players feel. It's really about how the fantasy experience brings you closer to the games you love. It makes sports more exciting. We needed to communicate that we understand that passion that players have for the fantasy experience. And so the work that we developed was designed visually to actually make you feel like you were getting closer to the action, and then use language that reinforce, we understand that the reasons why you do fantasy is because you don't just want to watch, you want to play. we built a whole campaign around this sort of emotional connection that people have, the passion they have around fantasy, really underscoring the fact that we get what viscerally makes playing fantasy such an exciting, exhilarating experience for players out there. But the other piece that we wanted to make sure we were addressing was the education piece. And one of the big benefits about daily fantasy versus season long is the ability to draft a new team every week. This is something that we absolutely talk about in prior years' work, but we were thinking about how do we bring that to life in an even more meaningful, opportunistic way. And for those, again, who play in fantasy, you know that this can be a really powerful ability to draft a new team every week, because as seasons unfold, your top players can get hurt, and if you're playing season long, they're out for the year. Or players that you didn't expect to have big years emerge that you wish you would be able to have on your team that you missed out on the opportunity. So as the season unfolds, the ability to react and adjust every week with a new team is a massive benefit for our product versus season long. So the question was, how do we make sure that we deliver that news in the most powerful, relevant way possible? And so what we decided as a team was we wanted to develop work that would respond to the speed of sports, to these things happening out during the season. And so we partnered with our agency, Deutsch, to be really thoughtful about how do we anticipate and proactively plan for this. You know, there been a theme that's come up, I think, throughout the day today around the importance of collaboration, proactivity, attention to detail, and a lot of those themes absolutely were at the center of us being able to play out this component of the campaign. So when we went in to produce all of the content for this, we laid out the templates we would need for different channels to be able to respond quickly. We worked with networks to make sure that if pre-clearance was required, that all that work was done in advance. We let our media partners know that there were expectations we would have on the ability to traffic work within hours as we wanted to respond to the news. And we created a Slack channel as a team that we spent Sundays watching football, communicating with one another about what was happening throughout the day, ultimately identifying whatever the biggest news was, writing copy, producing work Sunday night into Monday morning, so that when the sports news and the sports culture was out talking about whatever had happened on that Sunday, we had content, we had advertising that was running within those trending topics, letting everybody know that DraftKings was a chance for you to get a fresh start, whatever those pain points might be from the weekend before. So, as an example, week 1 of the NFL season last year, the consensus #1 pick, David Johnson, went down with a season-ending injury. And so we responded with this ad. So injuries were certainly one way for us to think about messaging. As the season unfolded, we would do content around emerging stars like Kareem Hunt or Deshaun Watson, who were having rookie seasons that people did not necessarily anticipate and became sought after by all fantasy owners. We also had fun in week 5 or 6, when a lot of season-long leagues, you start to have people who are 0-5 in their league, and they're starting to lose interest because they have no shot against the others in their league. So we took a shot at the New York Giants, who were also 0-5 at that point in the season, and had a little fun with the fact that luckily you're not the New York Giants and you can draft a new team this week and have a fresh start to your season. So it allowed us just to stay topical, to stay relevant, to show that we understand the passion points that our players and prospects have about fantasy. We saw great success at the end of the season. We actually exceeded, it's not on the slide here, but we exceeded our sales goal, first-time user acquisition by about 25%, but also saw these numbers in terms of brand perception and brand consideration increases, which really, for us, underscored the fact that we were driving more relevance among prospects and also educating them on why our product had unique benefit to the season-long experience that they had. So hopefully, for those of you who are out there and you're playing season long and maybe you're having a tough season, you're now inspired to jump onto DraftKings. You've got about 5 hours before Denver is playing Arizona tonight. So I highly recommend that you get out there and give the product a try. Thanks very much.